the little dragon who breathed bubbles instead of fire. Once upon a time, in the faraway magical land of Drakonia, where dragons soared high and tails were as plentiful as the stars in the night sky, there lived a very unique little dragon named Bubbles. Bubbles was unlike any other dragon you'd ever come across. Instead of breathing fire like the rest of his dragon kin, Bubbles breathed beautiful, shimmering bubbles. Wherever he flew, he left a trail of these twinkling orbs floating gently in the air, reflecting all the colors of the rainbow. The truth is, Bubbles was a bit self-conscious about his bubbly breath. All the other dragons could roast marshmallows with a mere sneeze or light up the sky with their fiery art, but poor little Bubbles could only puff out bubbles that popped at the slightest touch. The elder dragons would often chuckle and say, "Bubbles, young one, breathing fire comes with time. You'll see." But as the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, Bubbles still could not breathe even the tiniest spark. He would wander the meadows on his own, practicing his breathing. He'd take a deep breath, think of the hottest thing he could imagine, usually a volcano, and, puff, out came more bubbles, floating and bobbing along the breeze. One beautiful day, while Bubbles was practicing in the Meadow of Miracles, a band of pixies flew into the meadow. The pixies were curious creatures, and they were absolutely enchanted by Bubbles' unique talent. "Wow! You can make bubbles? That's incredible!" they exclaimed, dancing among the iridescent orbs. Encouraged by their excitement, Bubbles began to puff out bubbles of all sizes, and the pixies laughed and played, bouncing the bigger bubbles like volleyballs and popping the tiny ones with delighted giggles. They soon invited Bubbles to their annual Pixie Festival, where all creatures of magic showed off their talents. Bubbles was hesitant at first, but the pixies insisted. "Your Bubbles will be the star of the show," they promised. The night of the festival arrived, and everything in the pixie glade was alight with enchantment. Fire-breathing dragons put on a dazzling display, painting the sky with flames in brilliant patterns of orange, red, and blue. As Bubbles watched the fiery spectacle, doubt crept into his heart. How could his bubbles compete with such a fiery fiesta? But the pixies called for him excitedly, and Bubbles took his place at the center of the glade. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and let his worries float away like his bubbles. As he exhaled, hundreds of bubbles billowed forth, filling the sky with glittering orbs. The pixies began to play their joyful tunes, and something magical happened. The bubbles caught the melodies, and each one began to chime like a tiny bell. The forest filled with the music of the bubbles, each one ringing in harmony with the pixie orchestra, creating a symphony of light and sound unlike anything anyone had ever seen or heard. The fire-breathing dragons ceased their fiery art, entranced by Bubbles' spectacle. They watched as the whole glade turned into a dazzling dance of light and melodic bubbles. By the end of the night, Bubbles was no longer the little dragon who couldn't breathe fire. He was Bubbles, the bubble weaver, the little dragon with the magical breath, who filled the night with light and music, and the hearts of all the creatures with joy and laughter. From that night on, Bubbles was a celebrated dragon in Drakonia. He might not have been able to breathe fire, but he brought something equally as powerful and wondrous to his world, something no fire could ever match. He brought happiness and music, one bubble at a time. And so, dear friends, Remember that what makes you different is often your greatest gift. Just like bubbles, you may discover that what you once thought was a peculiarity could actually be a treasure to share with the whole world.